Okay, so what did we learn from week 2 of these autumn internationals? I do like these sorts of videos, looking back on the week, seeing what sort of themes we had about all the teams. And let's start with Scotland 17, New Zealand 25. Really exciting game. Absolutely love this game. New Zealand have been mistake-ridden. I think that's definitely something we've seen against Ireland and here. But if you don't put them away, they're going to come back and bite you again and again. And that's something that I think England have to watch out for. If they don't put them away, they're going to lose. And I think, unfortunately, the thing we saw reinforced about Scotland is when it really matters, they don't seem to put in their best performances. They could have won this game. It's not that they should have won this game particularly, because New Zealand are a great team full of great players, but this was the time to perform, not make those key mistakes, and they did it again. Thinking of maybe some mistakes from Blair Kinghorn, slipping off that tackle, Mackenzie at the last, just stuff you can't do if you want to win these big games. That being said, and as painful as it is for an Englishman to say, watching Scotland is fantastic. It's just a wild ride. Unfortunately though, they're not going to make it into that top 6 for the World Cup draw, so fingers crossed in December. That is not long away. New Zealand though, yeah, like I said, they're worrying me as an England fan. They've been wild so far, but they're still winning, and if they click on Saturday at Twickenham, then England, I think, are going to lose that one. If they keep making mistakes, England could definitely win it. I think New Zealand's style has become pretty obvious now, where they really try and run it from many different places. They'll go from deep. They're a team that backs their skills so far, not always backing it up, but it's doing enough, and they're going to do that again. Sure, they're going to play a kick game as well, but they will run from deep. Can England pressure them into mistakes? I think that is going to be the big question there, or if New Zealand cut loose, it could be problems. Personnel-wise, I think they're starting to solve some problems. I think that back row now, with Peter Lakai at 8, I think he's only about 22. He's a beast. Sure, he can carry hard, but defensively he is fantastic. His tackles, his turnovers are amazing, and that lets Wallace Satiti be more attacking from 6. And of course, you've got the world-class Ardy Surveyor at 7. And finally, that is a back row that is befitting of New Zealand of old, if you like. So that is a massive positive. Then let's talk about England 38, Fiji 18. First of all, great performance from Fiji. You can see the effect that having that professional domestic team for Gian Drua can do. Muntz is finally the world-class fly half they've been after. Set piece looked good. Maul looks good. The athletic talent is always there. And they're playing France next week. And if France rotate, who knows? So I think they are a serious force now. People saying that they're finally a tier 1 team, and I think they certainly looked at the weekend. Now, I'd written this down before England's team had come out, and I'd actually said for England it's about the personnel decisions. They've got a team that can beat anyone if they get them wrong. I think they're probably just a bit below the top team, so can they get their talent in the right places? Because I do think they have the talent there. We can see in the back row and the back 3 especially, we have some absolute firecrackers. Can we put that talent on the pitch and make it a real weapon, especially coming off that bench? So England, with that depth, could be very dangerous, especially in the last 20 minutes, bringing all sorts of firepower off the bench. Then France 17, South Africa 32. What did we learn about South Africa? Well, never write them off, because even when they're down a player, even when they're playing a basic game plan, they are probably too good for anyone. And it was just a performance of a world championship team, which is what they are when they can win in those conditions and win pretty well in the end as well. For France, I said in the video they would expected to have won that game, and I didn't say that as in they were the better team, but whenever any team is a player up for 40 minutes, they obviously didn't know they were going to get a yellow card, they would expect to win. So they will be disappointed, not that they deserve to win, just when you've got a red card in your favour, they should be thinking we can win this, but they were too manic. I think that's what we learn about France here, just too manic, too emotional, too inexperienced in places. They threw on a lot of players who didn't have experience. I don't know what the thinking was behind that, but this game definitely wasn't the place to do that. The crowd was desperate for a win, and they're probably going to be on their backs a bit now, because that crowd, those fans can turn a little bit. There's a bit of disquiet in the camp. You've got the old Dreet drama. So, no, France are in a bit of a delicate position, and they're going to have to watch out against Fiji. For South Africa, they're close to their end-of-year break. Italy and Wales, they could be in big trouble if South Africa finish in style, and I'm just glad that England aren't playing them, really. Let's talk about Wales 28, Argentina 52. How many positives were there for Wales? Well, maybe a couple, but they could have been so much closer if they hadn't shot themselves in the foot with some really bad decisions. Ben Thomas kicking out, Rogers rushing up and not having any cover in behind from the rest. Just some really poor decisions from Wales. I think they still would have lost probably, but it could have been a much more positive experience because those fans really needed something. And I think one of the big things to learn here is look at the crowd size. 50,000 out of a max capacity of 74,000 in a rugby-mad country. It's a bit of a problem. And I think we have to realise Wales are in a really perilous position here. They need to thump Japan for sure to try and get that second-tier position for the World Cup draw. But also, let's look ahead to their last two fixtures. New Zealand, then South Africa, 1 week after another. And on this channel, I've been doing this for a while now, I've banged on about how the WRU just makes the fixture list too hard. They're looking for those big names to sell tickets, of course, but year after year they've been making fixtures that are just too hard, as in, sure, have a 1 or 2 hard games, but then have some winnable games as well, very similar to what Scotland does. But they've done it again here, and I think they're in the worst position to deal with New Zealand and South Africa back to back, and this could be really, really bad. I'm sure the fans will turn out for New Zealand and South Africa, but if they keep getting a pumping, that 50,000 figure for other games might start dropping. And then finally, let's talk about Ireland 41, Japan 10. It's kind of job done for Ireland, and the big test is against Australia this week. If they get a good win, the feel-good factor will be back. If they lose, then there's going to be problems there, especially because Australia lost to Italy last week. So if Ireland can't beat them, then that's saying maybe they are on the slide. Now, I don't think they are. I think a good win against Australia will sort them out, but definitely worth saying that Australia, that was nearly a full-strength Australian team. Italy are a decent side for sure, but Australia were good against the Lions. They beat South Africa away. They would have expected better. So they've kind of shown their frailty, and maybe they're not that consistent side that we thought they maybe were. You know, there's some funny selection issues going on here. You saw some of their best players not available. Skelton was back in the top 14. James O'Connor, I think, was commentating. It's just a bit odd. They need all their best players. It is a bit of a problem, and especially when two kind of Australian eligible players who could have played for them in the past actually sunk them in the end for Italy. And I think the last thing we learned for Ireland was that the fly half issue is still not solved. Is it Crowley? Is it Prendergast? Prendergast came on and looked pretty good. They need to get that sorted. I think they need a clear 1 and 2 so they can build a team around them and they don't have to keep looking over their shoulder. Competition is good, but also you need to know who the first choice is, like that Sexton figure was. I think it might be Crowley, but he needs a good game against Australia. Anyway, guys, those are all my thoughts rounding out the second week of games in the Autumn Internationals. Let me know what you think down below. If you like these sorts of videos, do like, do subscribe. That'd be awesome, and I'll catch you next time.